All right, welcome everyone. Let me go ahead and pause my music there. This is the daily market wrap, the biggest charts in 30 minutes. My name is David Zimmerman. I'm the founder of DeFi University, probably some of the best, if not the best, crypto, DeFi, Bitcoin, Lightning, Nostr education in the English language. If you want to take a look at that, head on over to defiuniversity.xyz and check us out on school.com/DeFi University. All right, let's go ahead and start things off. I want to just run through some of the items that we don't usually look at on the evening call. Let's start things off here with the S&P. So the S&P, this phase here, let me go ahead and grab my arrow tool. This phase looks like Wyckoff distribution to me at a market top. So distribution happens before you see a correction. So that's kind of what I see here. And the reason why I think that this is distribution is because of what I see happening to yields. So I want to go ahead and run through yields here today. We're going to take a look at the US 30 year, the Japanese 30 year, the British 30 year, the German 30 year, and the French 30 year. Did you notice what all of those charts of yields for long dated bonds across the world have in common? They are all moving lower. Wow, I see that it kicked me off of my trading view again. That's so strange how StreamYard's broken. StreamYard's totally broken. But so all of the yields across all of the developed world economies are moving lower all at the same time. So the reason why that's so interesting to me is I see the S&P distributing at a market top as yields are actually pushing lower. You would expect the exact opposite to happen if we were truly entering a new boom phase, and the S&P were about to break out and just print fresh all-time high after fresh all-time high. You would expect yields to be pushing higher, not lower. So the fact that yields across all developed world economies are moving lower, with the S&P distributing at an all-time high or near all-time highs, that tells me that we might be about to see a correction from equities over the next couple of months. So I'm watching this very closely because as a digital asset investor, I have to know what software is doing in order to be informed on what Bitcoin could do. This is the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ last year, this time, put in its first leg down before that April tariff tantrum low. I see a very similar pattern playing out with the double top last year and the first leg down, the double top this year, and maybe we're seeing the beginning of that first leg down out of the NASDAQ. Why is that so important if we're focused on Bitcoin and digital assets? Well, because Bitcoin and digital assets have been extremely tightly positively correlated with software, basically for the majority of the last year. But that correlation has become even more positive basically since October. So I want to just define a downtrend. And what we're looking at here, this is a chart of IGV. This is the software ETF. Now, this is important because if I go ahead and throw Bitcoin on top of this chart of IGV, let me just do that real quick. Notice if we just zoom in, look at how tightly positively correlated these two assets have been, especially since like the April tariff tantrum lows. They've moved in lockstep. And so if I want to get some insight into what Bitcoin could do, I really need to watch software and not just IGV, but I also need to be watching Oracle and Microsoft, two big tech names. I also need to be watching CRM. That's Salesforce, another big tech software name. So here's Oracle bouncing at an important level of support. If I just go ahead and mark that, that is an important level of support for Oracle and bouncing, just like Bitcoin has bounced over the last couple of sessions. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft here put in a brief false breakdown. I can go ahead and circle that with my brush tool here. This is a false breakdown on MSFT. You can see if I zoom out here a little ways, just how far that trend line support goes back here. That goes back all the way to October, November 2022. So we got a little bit of a false breakdown on Microsoft, but the bounce. And the bounce came in right as Bitcoin was able to bounce on its own. So Microsoft, a big software player, Oracle, a big software player, IGV, the software ETF, all of them bouncing at the same time that we see Bitcoin bouncing off of its lows at 62.5 from just a couple of sessions ago. So software remains very positively correlated with Bitcoin. So that's why it's so important that we track these traditional asset markets in order to be more informed as digital asset investors. Let's take a look here at BTC now. I want to go ahead and begin by zooming out to a weekly. And on the weekly, this is the important level to watch. Let me grab my arrow tool and we can talk through this. So this 200-week moving average, this is the really important level to watch for BTC. Now, in every previous bear cycle, the 200-week moving average has either been tested or been broken to the downside. And so my expectation this Bitcoin bear cycle is for nothing to be different. I don't think it's going to be different this time. You know, you could say, oh, well, the Bitcoin ETFs or the potential regulatory clarity or the institutional adoption or whatever you want to say. But this time, I don't think it's going to be any different than previous Bitcoin bears. And that means we see the 200-week moving average, if not tested, then probably broken to the downside. And so my plan here for this Bitcoin bear market is to do three things. Okay. Oh, and it just looks like my StreamYard here kicked me off one more time. So I've got to add the screen share back. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Oh, and it kicked me off again. Just kicked me off again. Let me just go ahead and make sure I can get my stream back online, and we're going to add to stage. Okay, well, let's see how long it lasts for. My plan for this Bitcoin bear market is three things. Number one, I plan to wait patiently for an opportunity to buy Bitcoin below the 200-week moving average. I think that 50K looks like a decent level to really start accumulating Bitcoin. But if this bear cycle truly is no different than previous bear cycles, then we should expect Bitcoin to decline by at least 60% from peak to trough. That would actually mark one of the shallowest, if not the most shallow, Bitcoin bear markets in history. Now, what would happen if Bitcoin, instead of declining by only 60%, were to decline by 70% this bear cycle? Where if that were to happen, Bitcoin would be all the way down with a 30 handle, like 37, 38K, something like that. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to see Bitcoin trading at 38 or 37K this bear cycle. I will start buying Bitcoin at 50. So step number one, patiently wait for Bitcoin to break below its 200-week moving average. That's step number one. Here's step number two, buy Bitcoin. Buy it starting at 50K, buy it all the way down to 37K. Here's step three, do nothing. Step three is do nothing for 24 months at least. That's it. Wait patiently for Bitcoin to break its 200-week moving average. That's step one. Step two, buy Bitcoin. Step three, do nothing for at least 2 years. That's it. It's super, super simple, but it's not easy because it requires patiently waiting for a really good entry on BTC. And I think many investors just want some type of immediate gratification. You've got to be able to delay that gratification. and patiently wait, maybe in stables, for an opportunity to pick up BTC at 50, at 45, at 40, at 37. If you get the opportunity to accumulate Bitcoin in the 30s, I would take it. I would buy it hand over fist. So, my expectation for this cycle is that it is no different than previous Bitcoin bear cycles. And that means a break, a test at the very least, but likely a break of the 200-week moving average and a move down to 50K, but likely a move down into this zone down here between 32K and 48K. So, waiting for my opportunity to buy BTC. ETH. Let's check in with Ethereum. This is a weekly. Now, ETH, if we zoom in here just real quick to the daily, you're going to see that ETH during this latest pump, this looks to me like it could be a dead cat bounce. But during the recent pump from just 2 sessions ago, ETH was unable to break out above its respective level of horizontal resistance, which comes in at, let's call it 2160. So far, we've got the pump up to resistance, rejected at resistance, and starting to flag off a little bit on the daily for ETH. Now, if we zoom back out one more time to the weekly, this is my plan for Ethereum. I don't think if Bitcoin is unable to hold its 200-week moving average, I don't think that ETH will be able to hold above 1600. I think ETH would likely break below 1600 and make a move down to its bear market lows from last bear cycle. So that would bring ETH all the way down to maybe $1,000. Now, I am a big buyer of ETH at 1100, at 1200 in this green box down here. And I'm just trading ETH options right now, waiting for either a better opportunity to reload short positions or just to earn theta decay. So I'm selling out of the money ETH calls. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm waiting for an opportunity this bear market, so basically this year, I'm waiting for an opportunity to pick up ETH down here at $1,200. That would be a great buy. ETH at 1200. Let's take a look at Sol. Yeah, Sol's got some problems. So let's take a look at this together. Now, here's the thing. There are several bearish patterns playing out all at once in Solana. You've got this head and shoulders pattern, very bearish. You've got this bear flag. See this flag? That is very bearish. And the thing about this flag is that pattern completion on this bear flag would take Sol all the way down to its lows from last bear market, which were around $10. Oh my goodness, did it kick me off again? It did. There's something wrong with StreamYard. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with it, but I'm going to be switching over to OBS Studio here pretty soon. So my expectation here for Sol is that this bear flag completes and Sol makes a move down at least to $30, but likely down into this green box that I've drawn on the chart here. And I will be a buyer of Solana down in the, let's call it $20 region or so. I think that would be the level at which you would really want to start accumulating Sol because I expect this bear cycle to be no different than previous bear cycles. Now, Sol's only been through one other bear, but I expect that if Sol is able to break $67, that would likely mean that Bitcoin is also breaking below its 200-week moving average. So if Sol breaks down below 67, I think it would be a straight shot down to at least 30. So I will be a buyer of Solana between $10 and $20 down here. I think that we'll get an opportunity to pick up Sol on the cheap this year, but I'm patiently waiting. I'm not going to start buying Sol at 85 if I think that I have an opportunity this year to pick up Sol at 20. So I'm going to go ahead and sit on my hands on Sol and only trade it from the short side right now. Okay, let's take a look at gold and silver real quick. So this is the really nice parabola that we're looking for out of digital assets, but we haven't really gotten this. We never really got this bull cycle out of Bitcoin anyway. So this move up into this wick for gold makes me think that gold could actually push back up to these highs at 5,600. Now, if we take a look at silver, we don't quite see the same thing. I drew this range in on silver after the real crash that we got from those highs up at 122, 121 or so. And it's simply the weekly high right here from that one weekly candle there, that wick at 92, and the low from that same candle at 63. So that is the range that I see for silver. If it's able to break out above 92, then it would likely retest at least the body of this candle at 104. But if it gets above 104, then this wick is not resistance. So it might just run all the way back up to those highs at 122. So it's really, I think, worth it to watch gold and silver for right now. Okay, let's move on over here to some other digital assets. How about Tron? This one has been, I think, one of the best performers, if not the single best performer this past bull cycle. From trough to peak, it put in a 7, nearly an 8x. And if you count that wick, it did even better, like a 9, almost a 10x. The amazing thing about Tron is that it's held on to those gains. It has not just given everything back. And if we price Tron in BTC terms, like so, then you can see the outperformance even more clearly. So this bull cycle, Tron has outperformed Bitcoin the entire bull. That's really interesting. And Tron also, in Bitcoin terms, sitting at a level of resistance in Bitcoin terms. Now, what happens if Bitcoin breaks down below its 200-week moving average, but Tron declines by less? Well, this chart would go up. So Tron, if you want to hold something this bear market, you might just wait for Bitcoin to break its 200-week and buy TRX, because this has done nothing but outperform Bitcoin this bull market. Really interesting to see that. Here's Tau. So this is, one of the AI darlings here. It's an AI protocol, very interesting AI protocol. Looks like you can actually perform real work using Tau. But here's the thing. It is a high volatility altcoin. And if Bitcoin breaks below its 200-week moving average, I don't see it being possible for Tau to hold 145. I think 145 would break, and Tau would move at least to like 96 at the very least, but likely down to its lows from the start of this past bull, down here at like $40 or so. So I would actually be a buyer of spot Tau down here at 50, maybe 40, $50 in this green zone down here. So right now, waiting for an opportunity to either reload shorts or buy Tau. And I think we might get that opportunity at some point this year. So SUI, SUI, SUI putting in its own little bear flag here. I can go ahead and draw that in with a brush. Here's the pole, and here's the flag. Importantly, that flag is upsloping a little bit. So pattern completion here on that. Oh my goodness, again, it did it again. The thing, the trading view screen thing. My StreamYard just kicked it off. Oh, and it wouldn't even let me add it back that time. So let me hop in here one final time. Come on now, I believe in you. There we go. So it came back on. This StreamYard software is no bueno. Okay, so if this bear flag on SUI were to complete, then we would see SUI, all the way down here. Let me grab that arrow tool. We would likely see SUI all the way down here, at least at 35 cents. But if this bear flag completes, that likely means that Bitcoin has broken below its 200-week moving average. So a break below the 200-week and the completion of this bear flag would bring SUI down to like 10 cents, something like that. So we could still see a massive move lower out of SUI, the smart contract platform token. Here's XRP. XRP, didn't really get a great rally as Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol really pumped. So the level of support for XRP is its 200-week moving average at $1.11 or so. Now, if $1.11 does not hold, then XRP would likely move down into this region, which is simply its bear market channel from last bear market down here. So I would actually think that XRP could make a move down to like 33 cents, something like that. Maybe 30, 40 cents down here in this region. So just, I'm just thinking to myself, when do I reload shorts on XRP? Let's take a look at BNB. So BNB is doing its best to hold this level of support here at roughly 585 or so. But if or when that support fails, watch for the 200-week moving average to get tested at $500. Here's the thing though, again, you got to view this through the lens of what Bitcoin is doing. If Bitcoin breaks down below its 200-week moving average, pretty likely that BNB would be unable to hold its 200-week moving average, which means that it would get down into this zone down here where, this is no man's land. Hell, because there's no support here. This was a big, sharp move to the upside. Maybe you could say that there's support right here at $400 or so, but I would be dubious of whether that would actually hold, especially if Bitcoin really makes a move down to 50K. There's no way this support would hold. You'd be solidly in no man's land. Support comes in at $200 for BNB. So we could see a sharp move lower out of BNB, just like this move. You could see this repeat all the way down to 200 out of BNB. I think that would be about in line with the declines that I expect from just about every other alt. Let's take a look at Arrow. Arrow put in a big bounce. And this bounce out of Arrow brought it, if we zoom in to the daily from the weekly, this bounce out of Arrow brought it right back. See that level of resistance? It was support here. So this level at, let's call it 40 cents, it acted as support. When it broke, it became resistance. It held as resistance. And now as Arrow has pushed back up towards that 40-cent level, it is holding as resistance once more. So if Arrow backs away from 40 cents, that resistance level, that support comes in down below at, I don't know, let's call it like 27 cents or so. But Arrow is a reward token. So if Arrow breaks down below 27 cents, well, here's the thing. If Bitcoin makes a move to its 200-week, there's no way that Arrow is going to hold 27 cents. And if we zoom out even further here on this daily, notice how sharp this move here to the upside and that breakout above that 12, 13 cent level, notice how sharp this move was. There's no volume here. If there's no trading volume, then we could see Arrow break down below all the way back down to 12 or 13 cents in a heartbeat, really, really quickly. So it's getting rejected at resistance so far, and a breakdown below 27 cents would send Arrow down to like 13 cents in a hurry. Okay, here's AVAX. AVAX actually put in one of the biggest pumps in the previous session 2 days ago. Well, it was yesterday only. Oh my goodness. So this was a really, really big move out of AVAX. But here's the thing though, all it did was push up to this level of resistance. See, notice right here, it was resistance here, it was resistance here, and it was resistance yesterday again. So this is an important level of resistance for AVAX at $9.81. And since it's backing away from resistance, it is flagging. A lot of these assets are flagging. So they're putting in like a little bit of a bull flag here. So if we see continuation out of maybe tomorrow's session to the upside, well, then AVAX would likely push up towards like $11.20 or so. I'm not convinced of that. It's time for Bitcoin to continue its bounce, but today's session was really not what I think a lot of people were looking for. We were looking for continuation to the upside, didn't get it. So, we could just see AVAX back away along with all other digital assets. Now, if AVAX gets down below 754, then it would be a straight shot down to like $3. And the reason $3 is the target for AVAX is because if you zoom out, AVAX has already broken below its bear market lows from last cycle. So the break below its bear market lows from last cycle tells me that, oh my goodness, one more time, it did it again. But if we're talking about AVAX here, so AVAX, unlike most other digital assets, it has already broken down below its lows from last bear. So that means that if it continues down below like that level at $1.40, then the next support would come in at the lows from 2021 all the way down there at like $3 or so, $3.50. So I would actually be a buyer of AVAX down there. But for right now, it looks like it's got plenty more room left to the downside. Okay, let's see. What else do we want to take a look at here? Let's take a look at those yields again. But before we do that, let's check in on total market cap. I've got this horizontal support marked, but it was broken. We've just put in this bear flag. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And now I hope that we can all see this pattern shaping up here. Let's go ahead and draw this in. We've got some resistance above and we've got some support below. So this is a triangle, but the triangle after this move to the downside, after putting in this sharp downside move, that triangle looks pretty darn bearish to me. So this is the total crypto market cap. Now, if this pattern completes, we would see total crypto market cap likely break down below this level of support at 1.7 trillion. And if it gets down below 1.7, well, then there's no support until the lows all the way down here. Let me go ahead and mark that with a horizontal. So, man, that would be a precipitous drop. That would be a huge, huge move to the downside. If total breaks below 2.06 trillion right here, that level of support, then it would move first to 1.71. If 1.71 doesn't hold, then it's bombs away all the way down to the bear market lows from last bear cycle. Let's take a look at total 2. This is, crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin. So we're basically looking at the market cap for all alts right here. And we see a very similar pattern playing out where you've got this pole here and you've got this little bit of a flag or maybe a triangle, depending on how you draw that in. But the triangle after the big move lower is bearish. So we get a breakdown below 860 billion right here. And then the next level of support comes in the top of the range from last bear cycle, right here at 670 or so. So that would be the next level of support if this were to continue to the downside. Okay, we've got 3 minutes left. Let's check in on some Mag 7 items because it's important that we know what traditional markets are doing in order to inform our decision making as digital asset investors. So Tesla held this level of trendline support until it didn't. On the retest, it got rejected, backed away, all the way down to the 200-day moving average. So Tesla, if this pattern were to continue, watch for the 200-day to act as support. Google, GOOGL, similar pattern. This trend line acted as support on the way up. When it broke after Google reported, then we got the retest, the rejection, and now chopping above this horizontal support. The 200-day moving average comes in well below on Google. So Google, one of the outperformers. NVIDIA. Now, the thing about NVIDIA is that these guys, they reported just last night. And after reporting, gapped up a little bit, gave it all back, pumped and dumped, and spent the entire session today moving lower, off by 5.46% during the regular session today. So support for NVIDIA comes in here at its 200-day moving average at roughly $175. So going to be really important to continue to watch that one. Let's move on to Microsoft, a big software player. And we know that Bitcoin is positively correlated with software. So if we see Microsoft hold support and continue to bounce, that could be positive for Bitcoin. If Microsoft were to continue lower and break down below support one more time, make this not a false breakdown, then support, the horizontal support for Microsoft comes in again at 350. So this is important to watch because Bitcoin is positively correlated with software. Here's Apple. Now, Apple has been one of the outperformers because they don't have some massive capex on AI data centers. So Apple just kind of chopping around near all-time highs. We could even draw in some trendline resistance, something like that. Break above trendline resistance, and Apple could retest its highs at 288. Amazon, AMZN, big gap lower after reporting earnings a couple of weeks ago and found support at trendline support, trading well below its 200-day moving average. It would be interesting to see if Amazon breaks support. It's got plenty of room to the downside. So basically what I'm looking for here, and let's wrap things up with Meta. What I'm looking for here is continuation lower out of these Mag 7 items. And I'm looking for that because it's time for volatility to pick up and us to see a little bit of a correction out of the stock market. If we see that, well, then Bitcoin likely has another leg lower. All right. So StreamYard decided to kick me off right at the right time. Thank you, everyone, for joining live. I really appreciate all of you. If you get value from this, take a look at all the free education material that we've published over at defiuniversity.xyz. And also check us out in the free school community, school.com/DeFi University. Thanks so much, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next daily market wrap. Have a good one.